Hello everyone, my name is Nick and welcome to another episode of Scene Science. Where I break down exceptional scenes in film and television to explain what makes them so effective. The best scenes convey information far beyond the text of the script, and that's what brings the story to life. Sound, motion, lighting, set design, editing, and more all contribute to the language of a film, separating the unforgettable from the mildly memorable. The best scenes can offer conclusions to well-designed questions, pivotal moments of character realization, or, as is the case in today's video, a high-stakes climax to an arduous hero's journey. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I look forward to diving deep into some of my favorite scenes in cinema, and I would love to hear your suggestions for scenes that I should dissect in the future. Released in the summer of 2007, Ratatouille was the 8th film produced by Pixar Studios, and its third to win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, behind Finding Nemo and The Incredibles. Originally conceived by Jan Pinkava in 2000, the film was directed by Brad Bird of the aforementioned Incredibles fame, who brought along fellow Incredibles alumni Michael Giacchino to score the film. At the time, Giacchino was the only composer to score a Pixar film not named Randy or Thomas Newton, and this would continue to be the case until 2012's Brave. The voice cast for Ratatouille includes Patton Oswalt, Lou Romano, Ian Holmes, Janine Garofalo, Peter O'Toole, and more. The film grossed over $623.7 million at the worldwide box office, which would be just shy of $1 billion in 2024 money. Ratatouille is ultimately a classic hero's journey that follows our protagonist Remy from humble beginnings to sensational heights. In a meta sense, however, Ratatouille is a wonderful commentary on the nature of the artist and the ecosystem of creation. Remy's ambitions and his abilities rise and fall with the support of those closest to him, and his work's credibility is dependent upon the approval of someone who isn't in the trenches of creation themselves. Most artists can identify with these sentiments. It's easier to be creative with the encouragement and support of those around us, and it's much more challenging with their disapproval. It's also frustrating to feel like the success of your work is largely dictated by the opinions of outsiders. Many successful artists will tell you that the key is to create art that you want to see, as opposed to creating art that you think other people want to see. This sentiment is encapsulated in Remy's decision to cook the peasant's dish in his climactic showdown with Anton Ego, which is the scene that we'll be focusing on today. I think it's important to add a bit of context here before we jump into the scene itself, because it's important to understand where we've been to appreciate where we end up. The first act of the movie is a classic exposition setup for our protagonist Remy, and eventually his companion Linguini, and the sous chef turned new chef antagonist, Skinner. The film hits nearly all of the notes of Joseph Campbell's description of the classic hero's journey, with the television ad serving as a call to adventure, Cousteau's form appearing as supernatural aid, and Remy crossing the threshold into the new world of Parisian fine dining. Remy encounters Linguini in this movie's version of the meeting with the goddess, giving him the ability to execute his ambitions, and their journey becomes intertwined as they move through the road of trials. On that road, Linguini encounters the temptations of sex and success, and the two have a falling out that strips them of everything they've worked towards. They attempt to reconcile, but without the approval of the rest of the staff, they are cast into the abyss. Remy is the one who must atone with the father after their severance over Remy's ambition and his desertion of the clan. Remy reaches apotheosis and decides that he is still committed to cooking, while his father supports that decision and joins his quest to achieve the ultimate goal. With the help of Colette and Linguini, Remy is given a fair opportunity to prove to others and to himself that anyone can cook. This is where we'll cut in at the climax of our hero's journey.
Ratatouille? It's a peasant dish. Are you sure you want to serve this?
Here, Colette sets the table for the showdown with Anton Ego, as Remy consciously chooses to combat the fancy foodie with a quote-unquote peasant's dish. It's a full-circle self-referential moment, a congruence with the idea that anyone can cook. Any dish can be delectable if treated with the appropriate care. It's also a continuation of the meta-commentary on art and artist. Remy doesn't choose to cook something that Ego would expect to find in a high-end French bistro. Instead, he chooses a dish that he personally believes in, one that will surprise Ego. He's giving the consumer something they didn't know they wanted, which can unlock more advanced levels of delight than simply executing the expected. Note here too the great camera angle in this 3-shot of Remy, Linguini, and Colette. Animation allows the director to place the camera in areas that would otherwise be challenging or impossible in the real world. While most scenes in animation will still abide by the standard rules of filmmaking, the occasional break from those rules to take advantage of specific mediums can have great effect. Ratatouille frequently uses camera angles that would be challenging in live action as a means to accurately depict the scale of Remy and his surroundings. Here we see the resolution to a bit that was instigated earlier in the scene when the health inspector arrived and saw all of the rats. I want to take a moment to really applaud all of the digital artists that worked on this film. The level of accuracy and all of the elements, surfaces, and textures around the kitchen are truly impeccable. I've worked in kitchens before, and they really nailed the detailing in the wear, tear, and patina of all of these elements. The detailing of the rivets and surfacing on the refrigerator door, the wear on the edges and grout area and the tiles, and even the softness of the produce are all brilliantly executed. All of these details are essential to convince us that this world actually exists and allows us to get lost in the story and characters without being distracted by inaccurate settings. We get another great bit of camera placement here with this over-the-shoulder shot of Remy looking up towards Colette. In reality, the camera would have to basically be sunk into the countertop to achieve this shot, but animation makes it a breeze. This is the moment where Remy really steps into his own. He stops trying to mimic Gusteau and uses the foundations of those who came before him to build his own creation.
What? I am making ratatouille. Well, how would you prepare it?
Notice the light camera movement or tracking in each of these shots. This gives a little added pace and excitement to the scene, especially when coupled with the score. There's also 3 consecutive hard cuts that provide some extra bounce to the sequence, as the focal action moves from the right side of the screen to the left and then back, with 2 more dissolve cut swaps as Remy continues to build the dish. There's a reason that Ratatouille is considered one of the great food movies, and that's the effort they put into respecting the food and its environment. Producer Brad Lewis actually interned at the renowned French Laundry under chef Thomas Keller, who created this version of the titular dish and referred to it as conviviality. The crew went to great lengths to ensure that all of the kitchen and food-related depictions and terminology were accurate to real life. Pixar even developed new technologies that allowed them to create more realistic texture and movement in the various food items. This kind of care is essential to the execution of the story. It enhances the audience buy-in the same way that the detailing on the kitchen surfaces does. They don't say, "You eat with your eyes" for nothing, and creating animated food that appeared delicious on screen was no easy feat. If the food looked bad, the movie simply doesn't work. Giacchino's score builds quickly here, reaching its crescendo as Remy puts the finishing touches on his piece de résistance. The music resolves inquisitively as the dish meets its destination, and I love the match cut here from Ego to Skinner, who laughs at the plate before him. It's clear that Skinner anticipates Ego's disapproval, and we get this great insert shot that uses the rack focus technique to move the viewer from Ego's ready pen to Skinner's hopeful face. Linguini's anxiety is palpable as we cut back to the title fight between Ego and Remy. There's a cool 3-cut shot of Ego taking a bite that showcases the food delectably, and then everything shifts. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the climax of this film is its ability to both meet and subvert viewer expectations at the same time. I think most of us were ready for Ego to enjoy the Ratatouille because the film has set up a classic hero's journey that implies heroic triumph. But the way they chose to tell that story and the subsequent villain's turn really struck a chord with me and millions of other viewers. Anyone watching this sequence can imagine a moment in which they've eaten something that reminded them fondly of the past. Our memories are so strongly attached to all of the senses, and a simple taste, smell, or sight can trigger powerful emotions associated with those memories. I've always thought about recreating a dish or a recipe to be less about replicating the precise taste of the food and more about replicating the same emotions and sensations associated with the food. In this case, the ratatouille prepared by Ego's mom in his childhood looks vastly different from the example before him today, but Remy has played all of the notes necessary to conjure up Ego's connections to the dish. In a very meta moment, the movie has done the same to us. Pixar delivered us a movie that nobody knew they wanted, and left us reminiscing about our own fond memories of food, family, and friendship. I love these two insert shots here of Ego's pen crashing to the floor, its owner left stunned and silenced. It's not about the ink anymore for Ego, it's about the food, and it's the first time in a long time that that's been true. At this point in most meals, he'd probably be a few pages deep on his first impressions, but right now, it's just about the food. It's very satisfying here to pan over to Skinner and see that even he can't deny the impressiveness of the dish. Pretty satisfying for the viewer to see this slime ball meet the same fate as the health inspector, although to be fair, the health inspector was 100% correct in this situation. Can't be having a kitchen that is staffed by rats, even if the food is delicious. Very unsanitary. We get some more gratuitous food love as Ego soaks up every last drop on the plate with a fingertip and requests to personally thank the maker of the meal.
I find myself in the extraordinary position of having my waiter be the chef.
Thanks, but I'm just your waiter tonight.
Then who do I thank for the meal?
Excuse me a minute?
While there's no one specific shot in all of this third act sequence that jumps out, there's a satisfying mix of camera movement, point of view changes, and pacing of cuts that keep a very long restaurant sequence moving at a manageable pace.
You must be the
If
chef.
you wish to meet the chef, you will have to wait until all the other customers have gone.
So be it.
We fade in and out of a time lapse as Ego awaits his opportunity to meet the chef, and the scene closes with an interesting sequence explaining this interaction. Remy's narration comes back in, and although narration can often be an intrusive and uninteresting crutch, I think it's used quite effectively throughout Ratatouille.
At first, Ego thinks it's a joke, but as Linguini explains, Ego's smile disappears. He doesn't react beyond asking an occasional question. And when the story is done, Ego stands, thanks us for the meal, and leaves without another word.
The conclusion of the restaurant scene is a great way to keep the viewer invested in the falling action of the third act. We know that Remy the chef has achieved his goal of high-quality cooking, but we are reminded that there are still barriers to his future success. As Ego ends the visit, we're momentarily concerned and confused while awaiting his reaction. This is a pretty different place from where we were just a minute ago, ensconced in Ego's childhood kitchen. From there, we get one of the most satisfying monologues in cinema, featuring the full conclusion to the hero's triumph and the villain's turn. I would love to end the video by playing the entire monologue for you, but it's nearly 2 minutes uninterrupted, and I am not looking to get a phone call from Disney Michael Mouse. Everyone head on down to the comments below and let me know which scenes you think that I should dissect for future videos. I've got some heavy hitters on my short list, but I want to know what scenes that you think are best, especially if they're from some more offbeat or lesser known films. Whether it's due to the cinematography, the screenwriting, the acting, or otherwise, I want to know which scenes you think deserve the scene science treatment. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'll go a long way towards helping me build scene science and acknowledge more excellence in cinema. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you next video.